I've never felt the scriptures as much as I did at the beginning of the war, especially the Book of Mormon.
Now, breaking news.
Países de todo
Russia has
Fear of
defeated
bitter and
Ukraine.
bloody war began as devastated economic from the West and fueled economic insecurity.
Begin a special military operation.
Being in a war is sad, but at the same time, it's also how we experience His love. I'm from Moldova. A lot of people have no idea where this country is. So if we take Europe, it's in the east, there's Ukraine. And then right next to it, there's just a small country, it's called Moldova. Yeah, I was born and raised there about 2.5, almost 3 years ago. I got married, and my husband is Ukrainian. And I think it was around July 2020, right after we are allowed to leave the country, I moved to Ukraine. So ever since, our life has been, just back and forth. A year later, around 5 a.m., we got a phone call from my mother-in-law. And she's like telling my husband, like, why are you sleeping? The war just started. Everybody was aware that it's gonna happen. Like, we all felt it. I remember our last church meeting on Sunday before the war started. Our word was kind of, we were just saying goodbye to each other. I would say it was a depressing Sunday because everybody had that feeling that, well, who knows when we're gonna see each other again. It was the same Sunday. I was like, we need to move, we need to leave because I have a bad feeling. And he's like, oh, don't worry, it's gonna be all right. And it wasn't. We found a bus that would go from Kiev to Moldova, and we bought tickets for him, from me, and from my mother-in-law. And the moment we got on the bus, the president released a statement that men are no longer allowed to leave the country. So it happened, my husband just literally got off the bus and sent us off. I don't think I had many emotions. After I cried myself out for about 2 months, I couldn't cry for a long time at all. The government provided, some sort of assistance. They can't replace your life you had at home. And I think that's important to understand for the whole world. Like, why is Ukraine still asking for so many donations for help with the military equipment? Well, imagine that your country is dealing with this. Your house is burning and the neighbors are just there filming. And you're like, well, help with something, with water. You have water in your home. And then it'd be like, oh, you had water as well. Why don't you use your own water? But then you're like, my house is on fire. So that's how a lot of Ukrainians still feel. I think I've never felt the scriptures as much as I did at the beginning of the war, especially the Book of Mormon, because it talks so much about contention. It talks so much about wars. It talks so much about, killing the innocent. And I remember there's this promise that says that God will avenge His children. And to me, that was everything. I knew that God will take care of this. No organizations were ready for that. No international, refugee councils were ready. So all you had to do, you did it yourself. I talked to Patrick and I asked him if it's okay for me to take a month off work so I can focus on the refugees. I took one of my friends and we went and bought some groceries for some refugees that came into the country because I was like, I don't know what to do.
Come thou fount of every blessing.
Oh, I'm excited.
Tune my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy, never ceasing. Call for songs of loudest praise.
I remember one time, the very first day when I went out to deliver food to a refugee, I didn't know her. And I remember we just hugged and cried for like half an hour. Just because I think we need someone to cry to, that's it. Being in a war is sad, but at the same time, it's also how we experience His love through trials. Because otherwise, once we're comfortable with our lives, we don't feel the need to turn to God. What is to remember is that God always keeps His promises, and He'll comfort us in our own way. What was comfort to me was service. That was the only thing that helped me get through this. And I know that once God gives me trials is because I'm forgetful and because it's time for me to turn back to Him.